Okay, so listen, I think I made like a million Brock Purdy videos during the course of last season. Obviously, he was a very talked about player, I mean, rightfully so. Was an MVP candidate, was someone who went to a Super Bowl, nearly won it. But there's still a lot of debate as to how good actually is he. And I think there's actually reasons for why it could be more of a nuanced conversation than, it usually is with something like this. So I figured let's make a video and talk about what he does well, what he does poorly, and I think at the end of this video, come to the kind of final conclusion as to how he actually is as a player. So first, let's start off with a play you see on the screen. So it's going to be a man coverage play. It's actually Chris Conley running around towards the top of the screen for San Francisco. Purdy's going to take the snap, and you're going to see that when he fires the ball in that direction, he sees, an open guy. Conley gets open here. This is something Purdy does a very good job of and does this consistently, which is finding who's the guy he should throw it to and putting it in a spot where, player can make the grab, right? Picks his matchups very effectively, which that's a huge part of a quarterback's job, is just throwing it to the right guy. As you see, Conley did win the matchup. Again, you can definitely sit here and say, well, it's easier to do this when you have San Francisco and, with the weapons that they have with, Kittle and Ayuk and Samuel and Christian McCaffrey. Sure, part of why I specifically didn't choose any of those guys was to show that he's not just dependent on them. That's why I showed a play of a different player, but still, definitely that is going to help things out a little bit. Like this play is another example. We're sticking with the Super Bowl. It's going to be man coverage again, which is definitely not, San Francisco likes to go up against zone to kind of run the ball a lot to try to get teams in zone, but Kansas City was sticking with man, which was the right strategy, obviously. But anyway, it's a, important play in this situation. I mean, it's a 3rd down and 2. This was in overtime. If they don't convert here, to have to punt the ball back, all Kansas City would have needed was a field goal to win. Obviously, we know Kansas City would go on to win anyway, but still, that's the route. It's Brandon Ayuk's route. And the route itself, again, something that can definitely work in this concept. And Ayuk, really good receiver. So on paper, this doesn't seem like the most difficult situation for Purdy to try and make something work. However, when this play begins, one thing that he does such a good job of is you look down the field. Ayuk, is he open? It looks like it could work, right? But if you look at Purdy, you see he's already in the throwing motion. He does such a good job at this running the offense style stuff that because of it, watch as he's able to, throw it on, well-timed. They're able to hit Brandon Ayuk, and they're able to get a conversion right there. So that's kind of the upside with Purdy, is a lot of that stuff. Well, okay, that's very good. But let's go over to something like this. So why is he a controversial player? Why do some people say that he's actually not that good and just a product of the system if he's doing a good job of that? Well, again, part of it is people give credit to other players, but there are some legitimate criticisms to be had with his game as well. Specifically, a play like this, I think he puts the ball in harm's way too much. In the playoff game against Detroit, this situation where it's that over-the-middle route, this is what Kyle Shanahan loves to attack right over there. However, here, Purdy's going to take the snap, and he is going to be kind of hit as he's thrown, or a little bit, just maybe more under pressure as he's thrown, I should say. But that's still a bad decision when there's pressure on you like that. It does turn the ball over. Again, this is just a thing where he would turn the ball over a bit too much, in my opinion, from when I watched him play. I think that's a fair thing to say. And even, a lot of times it didn't come back to bite him, but still, something he's going to have to clean up as he continues to get older. Again, I think sometimes we forget just how young he is. He's in his 2nd season, right? I mean, he's done more, he got to a Super Bowl in his 2nd season. Mahomes didn't do that, right? So, and got to another conference championship game. I guess technically you could argue Mahomes in the 2nd season as a starter won a Super Bowl, but you know what I mean. Let's go to a chart real quick that, I originally created this chart for Tua, but it definitely works with Purdy as well. And it's just kind of the concept in general of how I view quarterback play. We'll go through it real quick. But you see 2 bars on the screen. The top bar is going to represent the quarterback's actual value, what they brought to the table. How well did they play? Further to the right would be a 10 out of 10 game. Further to the left, a 0 out of 10 game. The bar on the bottom is going to represent the stats, the box score numbers. Usually, something like this would happen, where if a quarterback has kind of a 5 out of 10 game, the box score numbers are going to reflect that and be around 5 out of 10, right? But that's far from what always happens. In fact, I would say that actually, usually this doesn't happen. Usually it's going to be a little different. Either the numbers don't quite tell the story in a positive way or in a negative way. Sometimes something like this happens, where a quarterback did what they could in a bad situation, but it didn't matter because they were in a bad situation, so the numbers weren't very good, but the quarterback actually played all right, and it wasn't really their fault. This definitely happens. Just like this is something that happens, where a quarterback might have a good game, but also the numbers are otherworldly. Maybe it was a good game, but then there was one screen pass that went for an 85-yard touchdown, and that inflates the numbers. That's also something that very much happens. This chart is what you could use to, in some way, kind of, as an example of maybe if you think Purdy is overrated, by looking at this chart and saying, well, this is what I think happens. I think Purdy has 5 out of 10 games, but the receivers around him make it better. But the thing is with Purdy, he's in such a good situation that he's always going to have a higher bar on the bottom of the screen than the top of the screen. If he has a bad game, the bar is going to still bring it up. If he has a good game, the bar is going to still be higher. And even if he has a 10 out of 10 game, then the production is still going to be 10 out of 10. So inherently, if you're someone who just looks at box score numbers, you are probably going to overvalue him, but that doesn't mean he's not also playing well. Like, I do think he's a good quarterback who also is in a good situation. This chart is exactly why he fits so well in San Francisco. This is why he's absolutely a perfect player, and then we'll get back to the film, I promise. But real quick, you look at when you break down his plays from under 2.5 seconds and over 2.5 seconds. Usually, the reason why you do 2.5 seconds is because that's around when a play breaks down. Usually, if you're getting rid of the football in under 2.5 seconds, it's because the play is kind of working as designed. If it's taking longer, usually you have to kind of use your playmaking to make something happen. You see, Pro Football Focus has actually not graded him particularly well under 2.5 seconds, and I think a big part of it is because he will put the ball in harm's way sometimes. But despite that, the passer rating is still best in football. And when plays break down, he is second highest graded quarterback in those situations, and the passer rating remains first highest in football. Like, to me, this is a good example of what he can do, where what's going to happen on this play is it's going to be a designed rollout towards the offense's left. That's the way this play is designed to work. Purdy is going to take the snap. He is going to roll out in that direction, but listen, we talk about how great the Shanahan scheme is. It's not always perfect, though, and there are going to be times like this where nothing is really open. So for someone like Garoppolo, you'd be in trouble. Garoppolo would probably just dump it off to Deebo Samuel, and a Lions player would probably make a tackle. You only gain a yard or so. Instead, Purdy is going to keep his eyes downfield, eventually finds Kyle Juszczyk, who kind of also saw that things were breaking down and kind of ran over to a gap in coverage. He wasn't open earlier, is open now. Because of that, it's going to be a catch, and they pick up a big conversion there. And to me, it's kind of one of those things where I think sometimes we, as sports fans, have the wrong conversations. We always love to talk about, well, who deserves the credit and how good is Brock Purdy compared to other quarterbacks in the league, when the reality is that doesn't really matter. Like, if Brock Purdy is just a system quarterback who's great in his situation in San Francisco, that's a great thing for the 49ers. That's not an insult to them. Like, at the end of the day, if that's how you view him, I don't think he would only be good in the San Francisco scheme. I think he could be good elsewhere, but, like, he is perfect in that scheme. So, yeah, really good stuff. That's what I think. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And, of course, as always, thanks for watching.